Which one are you gonna? You can be heard all the way around the room, so you know, you can take a seat and stand up when I call for like.
Curtis, I have your nameplate if you want to come back up. I think we're gonna see if you already got.
Oh, that's too, so slide over, Laura.
Sorry, no. If you hear my stomach, it's not because
You guys sit down, take a load off. You gotta leave. I gotta leave. Yes, that's like.
Right.
Yeah, let's go.
The whole school team.
All right. We have Aaron on. Aaron, you're on, right? You can hear us?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so. All right, it is 7:01 and I'm calling the school committee meeting for Reading Public Schools to order here in Metro headquarters in Boston. We are briefly virtual, so we have to do a roll call, attendance call. So I'll start with Aaron.
Here.
Carla.
Yeah.
Laura.
Here.
And Tom here. Sean and Sarah send their regrets. Unfortunately, they both were not able to be here today. So before we go too much further, we'll just drive our way through the agenda and then jump in. So, of course, my Zoom is crashed with my computer, so apologies. But we got that. It's the most important. We will public comment. So if anybody wants to give public comment for anything not on the agenda, that's where we'll start. Basically 2 to 3 minutes, your name, your address, and the topic of conversation. It's not on the agenda. Anything on the agenda, we'll take Q&A throughout the agenda and go through. We then have a consent agenda, which we'll go through for review and approval. We'll then move to reports, starting with our student, and Tamia seems to be here to support that, plus the conversation. We have our superintendent report, and then any liaison and subcommittee reports from the committee themselves. From there, we'll move to our regular business portion of the meeting, which will start with an ACE update, and Ryan is here to help us with that, provide some feedback on how that's going. We then have our Friends of Reading Metro discussion. Team here will get us going in that regard, including a series of questions they've sent to us to provide some feedback on. We'll then move to the State of the Reading Metro program, and our co-leads here are here to help us with that. And then we have the Metro CEO search timeline and process, and Dr. Milashevsky will give an update on that. He is a member of that search committee. We'll then move to any old business, which is an update on the Metro program director search process. Again, Dr. Milashevsky will do that. And we'll conclude with the school choice update and the second lottery process in the department. So that is our order of operations this evening. So with that said, I'm a little bit blind because of the Zoom issues here. So raise your hand. I'll do my best.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I love it. Maria Morgan. I love that.
We do have many members of the greater community on Zoom as well. So, as and when you have a question, please raise your hand. I'll try to see it so we can address it in order as necessary. And with that said, we'll start with first things first. Does anybody have any public comment for anything not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. The agenda does have a focus on excellence, but I understand that is in part of the presentation, so we're gonna go ahead and wait for that until we get to that part of the presentation. So then we'll move on to the consent agenda. And Aaron, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded by Carla. Any discussion from any members of the committee? Any concerns? Dr. M, you want to make a point?
You'll see in the packet, you'll see number 6 is acceptance of funding transfer from the opioid revolving fund to Reading Public Schools. I would just like to thank the Reading Coalition. So when you received one-time funds as a result of an opioid settlement, and then they decided to wanted to partner with us to use some of those funds to move what we have as a part-time health teacher into a full-time health teacher. So we have for years had a 0.6, which is 60% of a full-time position. They will be for 3 years funding the additional 40%. So now we're able to have a full-time health teacher who's gonna be shared across our 2 middle schools. So just like to thank the coalition so much for our community, but also for helping us to fund this position, which we know is is a need in our community. So huge thank you to Erica McNamara and her team.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other points of discussion? Okay, we'll move on to a roll call. So again, roll call in favor of the motion. Aaron,
Yes.
Carla,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Tom, yes, and it passes 4-0. So we'll move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is the student report. And Tamia, looking to you, can you have a report for us?
Yes, I do have a few. So at RMHS, we have the dance team tryouts that'll be held on June 4th and 6th from 3:30 to 5 p.m. at Coolidge. And we also have the RMHS cheerleading team tryouts that'll be held June 3rd, 4th, and 5th from 6 to 8, also at Coolidge. That's about it, what I have.
Okay, thanks for the update.
No problem.
There's a lot going on over the next couple of weeks. Certain somebody definitely is great. That's not me. That's live. So, all right, Dr. M, moving on to you.
Great. Sarah, do you want to start? All right.
I had a quick report.
You have it, okay, please go for it.
Okay. So as you know, one of the things in academics, we often are looking at our different groups of students to ensure success for all of our kiddos. And one of the groups in particular that we keep a very close eye on are our Boston resident students. We had the opportunity this winter to apply for a grant from Metro Inc. to provide some additional early literacy tutoring for our Boston resident students. And we felt that that was a great opportunity and needed because we have seen that some of our youngest Boston residents kiddos K-2 could use some additional support. We partnered with a company called Ignite, and they're sort of a unique model. It's a 15-minute a day online tutoring, and they specifically just target those early literacy skills. Now you might say, well, what's different about this from what the kids are already receiving through our intervention program? Ignite has some unique features for any students that might have multiple languages. They will pair the student with an instructor that also speaks the languages that the student speaks. Instruction is still in English, but it gives that tutor an opportunity to connect with the student, and in the downtime and when they're engaging the student, a way to really build a connection with them. Additionally, for all students, they try to connect them with a tutor that in some way matches their identity or in some way will help that student want to show up for tutoring and feel motivated to do the hard work. We actually have a meeting with them, I think tomorrow, to get our latest data update. We have 6 Boston resident students that are participating. In our first meeting, we're really encouraged with about half of the kids making really good growth goals, which is amazing. Tomorrow, I'm hoping, or our next meeting, I'm hoping to hear that all of our students are doing that. You know, with anything we pilot, we know it's not always going to be a good match for every single child based on their learning styles, but this seems like a promising practice and something that's a little unique and different that we're really lucky to have the opportunity to offer to our youngest Boston resident students to live on the funding. More to come on that.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Hardy? Seeing none, Dr. Milchester?
just add a little bit on that too is also this Google, Johns Hopkins, Ignite study that came out that, what showcased what is some of the impact across the country, of sort of the online tutoring through Ignite Radio, which is really encouraging. I would just like, there's so many people in the room here, parents, school committee members, staff who played a role in what is going to be some recognitions and celebrations we have tonight of students, of schools, of programs. I'd also like to give an unexpected thank you and shout out to Curtis Martin, who came back to be here too, but a lot of the work that you did here, you'll see reflected. Definitely be a part of our students' lives, our community, even as you transition onto it. So nice to have you here today.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to the updates from a subcommittee or liaison perspective. We'll start with Aaron
No report tonight.
and Carla.
So, update on Killam School. Tomorrow is the vote. Please vote. We're really excited about where we are with the project right now. We have a 3-story building, with a very efficient building, very, durable and safe building on a wonderful site with a lot of on-street parking. Off-street parking onto the site, the traffic patterns, we've looked at the traffic patterns. We are getting a $44+ million grant from the state. If the vote does not pass tomorrow, we will beg the MSBA to let us put it to the voters again in a very short amount of time. If that does not pass, then we're out of the program. The current condition of the school enabled us to get into the program. You have to have you have to have a school that is really in dire straits to get into the MSBA program. So the good news is that we're in because it's a very competitive program, and we're really appreciative to the state for the funding that they have put forth to us. And so as a town, we need to prove to them, show them within 120 days that we would like to move forward with the program as well. So the vote is tomorrow. We'll know tomorrow night which direction we're going in.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Carla? Seeing none. Laura, do you have it up there?
I do not have any updates.
I can assign you some.
I know.
subcommittee.
And it's work.
You got some work to do. One of our conversations continued. We'll assign it all to you.
Perfect.
So I guess a quick update, not really liaison or subcommittee report, but just for everybody to be aware, 2 very important votes took place at town meeting over the last couple weeks. One is by a vote of 158 to 1. The Killam vote, financing was approved by town meeting, which is aligned to the vote that Carla just mentioned. So presuming the town does vote tomorrow in favor of Killam, town meeting has already approved the funding in line with that as well. And the second one is the budget was voted, I think, unanimously in favor of the entire budget for the 2026 FY26 year as well. So that starts July this coming year. Okay, those are 2 pretty big updates there. All right, so let's move on. Any questions on that before I move on? All right, so we will move to our new business and start with our ACE update. And Ryan, look at you, my friend.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So my name is Ryan Johnstone. I haven't met any of you before, so I'm really happy to be here now. So I'm on the ACE committee, which stands for, I'll pop out here really quick. So the ACE committee, it's the Ad Hoc Commemoration Establishment Committee, colloquially referred to around town as the Bill Russell Committee. And so I just wanted to go really quickly who we are and the purpose before I provide the updates to make sure we're on the same page and for other members of the community. So we are an ad hoc committee created under the select board and under their authority for the specific purpose of developing a long-term action plan to implement the select board's proclamation on August 9th, 2022. That was 9 days after Bill Russell died. The select board issued a proclamation talking about how great Bill Russell was, his legacy, and kind of directing telling the town manager to come up with a Bill Russell day around town. Eventually, this committee was established to try and do that. We had to deal with some other priorities around town, local community members, got this ad hoc committee established. And so A, develop a long-term action plan to actually implement that, that statement. Acknowledge and express accountability for the mistreatment of Bill Russell and his family in Reading. Establish funding and infrastructure for that long-term plan, that first issue. ID the barriers to participation, engagement, and representation for Black and Brown people in all aspects of Reading life, and honor Bill Russell's legacy by striving to create the vision of an inclusive, equitable, and welcoming community. So that's the committee, that's the purpose under the charge. It's currently has 9 voting members, of which I am the school committee's designee. There's also a designee from the select board, the board of libraries, from Cato, from the Office of Equity and Social Justice, 2 Reading residents, and there's a non-voting member right now also, sociomember Commission. So there are 10 of us in a room at these meetings, and we are having great conversations with it. So status update now of, well, so we've had 4 meetings. They were monthly, January, February, March, and April. We're now going to be kicking it into 2 meetings for May and 2 meetings for June. As we're going to have a table at the Reading Friendly Family Day. And we're also eyeing Juneteenth. Well, not eyeing, we will be doing something at Juneteenth in collaboration with the Office of Equity and Social Justice, where we'll be giving a little bit of a speech there. We haven't quite figured out exactly what that's going to be. But prior to all that, we kind of kicked everything off in January, February. Reggie, assisting with one of the other members on the committee, Eddie D, who is actually a voting member of the committee, put together a nice timeline and representation of background of Bill Russell's life, growing up in the Jim Crow South and then moving over to California, eventually his career, and really identifying some of the themes of racism throughout his life, different ways he experienced it at different times, different aspects of where he was now finding himself in the community, and talking about how Bill Russell revolutionized the game of basketball, which I really appreciate, because honestly, as much as I've always known all the students and wanted to help with the Bill Russell issue, it wasn't until this committee and hearing about his background and that revolutionizing the game that it really made sense to me who Bill Russell is as a person. Right, he started playing at a time when you did not leave your feet on defense. If you left your feet, you're immediately kicked off the court. But he eventually realized he can't play unless he leaves his feet. He's taller than everybody, jumps higher than everybody. They want to shoot, and he can stop that from happening. So even against coaches pushing back on him, he kept doing it and doing it and doing it, because it was the way he could play, and the only way he knew how to maximize what he could want to get done. And as a result, years later, all of a sudden, everybody's doing it and they're following it, letting change later on. And then, you know, he could have really took a step back in the community, but instead he stepped forward. He became the first Black coach in the NBA, as a player coach. He refused to have a white coach with him because he knew, having been in Boston for so long, and as well as just being a Black star in sports, he knew if there's a white person next to me, they will always question whether or not I did it or they did it. So he wanted to be out there on his own, and that. So we got that background to really understand what legacy of Bill Russell we're trying to honor. So in the last couple of months, we've been really talking a lot about what we're going to do around town. We've spoken about some easy lifts so far. We're going to work with the library to put on like some movies or show, the documentaries about Bill Russell, interviews. There's dozens of hours worth of videos of Bill Russell talking about civil rights, basketball, growing up. There's books that he wrote, books about. So we want to work with the library to create the Bill area to help educate our town about Bill Russell, as well as a little more interactive, maybe like a mixed media club where, you know, we'll have these discussions and hopefully, you know, members will keep on coming. And then the idea might be for that to then go into other topics that springboard off of Bill Russell now as a person to his legacy and so on. But we're still trying to talk about what more we want to get done. And so that's why May and June, we're going to be having a lot. And one of the reasons I wanted to make sure I was here today, which just happens to coincide with MECO, and I think it's great to be down here. I think it's good timing for it, given the conversation, is we we need to start getting a lot more public input. We want to hear from the boards that we represent, right? So when I come in here with what was the purpose of our committee, hopefully you guys can come up with some ideas that you might like to see. But we're also, the school keeps coming on, right? We keep wanting to figure out how we're going to get the whole town involved. And so ideas of some art projects in school or something. So the next couple of months, we are going to be at the Reading Friends of Family Day. We want to use that for a lot of community involvement and just to have people understand who we are. See if people want to talk to us kind of an ad hoc at that time, get some ideas. But Juneteenth, we are going to have a pretty big presence there, and we are hoping to give an actual statement at that time. If we are able to get it through, it will be the statement acknowledging accountability and expressing regret for that. May not be able to get something that impactful done by that time. We have to work with the select board on that, get everything lined up. So it may end up just being like a statement of intent, more about who we are for the town. But we're hoping that we can at least have some more of our programming actually lined up at that time and roll it out. So that's where we are now. The next 2 meetings in May are going to be about tightening up that Juneteenth. And then I think we have a meeting right before Juneteenth, and then we're going to start dissecting information, lessons learned, and figure out what we want to do for the next 6 months after. So anything from you guys, like put you on the spot now, absolutely not. But at some point, if you guys want to start thinking about that, and please engage me about any thoughts, because I will be coming back with some ideas 100% about how we might want to utilize the school system and some ideas about what we can and can't do. Any questions? Yes.
So the committee was formed last summer?
Yes, so the vote happened on Juneteenth last year is when the committee that's when the select board approved it. The committee just got, VASC didn't get around to doing their interviews for people until September, October. And we got appointed around December, so January was our first review.
Okay, because I was saying, what was the delay for all those months? So one thing that you said when you said funding, just make sure, I don't know if you can do funding as a ad hoc to the select board. You guys got to check that out.
Correct. So our goal is to make a recommendation to the select board on how they might be able to fund it.
And then be careful of your sunset date too. So do you have a sunset date?
We have a sunset date. It is 12 months from our first meeting.
What's the first?
For the first meeting.
Great, thank you.
So actually to piggyback on that, we do have a little bit of a burn down plan heading down to that, which is why we kind of ID'd Juneteenth, hoping to do something. So we get lessons learned, so we can spend the next kind of 6 months trying to come up with what a long-term program might look like.
All right, Aaron. So it just struck me as I'm looking around this room, right? Just an idea, I don't even know if we can do it, so that's whether it's schools or whether it's library or something, but I could envision a room like this that does a lot of Bill's life, the challenges he went through, as well as the successes and accomplishments. That could speak in and of itself, right? And it could be a permanent thing to a degree. Whether his family would approve is another question. Whether it's the library that it's in or one of the schools or something else is another question altogether. But this room seems to speak in a very similar way to what you might be able to display about Bill's life and commemorate it. So for those of you who can't see it on the Zoom, it's essentially a timeline of various different critical events that have happened and quotes and key events of Metco as a program that's happened over the years, starting back in 1963.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't accomplish a full timeline, but it does something. So that's just an idea in addition to the art project idea or something else. I've always thought of one particular idea that sort of pigeonholes him into a certain space too. And I think we all know what that pigeonhole might be, but something else to think about too with what that might be. So as you're coming through that, as you and I can maybe trade notes about whether we want to have a brainstorming session from a school committee perspective. We'll
Yeah.
put that on the agenda, so it's not a full deliberation, it's more of an update. But let's discuss whether that's viable, or if there's anything else you want to bring that's being brought from the ACE committee as ideas. And whether or not, funding wise or physical space wise.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, by the way. The first thing I saw on that wall right over you was 1960s Boston School Committee was a stubborn opponent of Black community activists. Well, that Bill Russell was one of them, right in the 60s around here in Boston at that time. I agree 100%. I was thinking the same thing looking around here. It's how great this room is set up and how much it's, intertwined with the ACE committee and what it is we're trying to establish.
Okay.
Is it appropriate to have a question or comment from
You can
the
ask a question.
participant?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much, Ryan. I appreciate what the committee is doing. I really think the super important thing as a white Reading resident is to have conversations in the Reading community, true conversations about, how Bill Russell and his family were treated, because there's such a silence around that, a deliberate silence. So I was at something recently, an arts consultation about the arts plan in town, and talked with someone from the History Commission. I'm an Australian person who's been in town for 6 years, and I knew more about the history of his family in Reading than this person did, who's lived there 40 years. That was a deliberate not knowing, right? So I really encourage that we have to have conversations in town with people to really talk about what happened and accept responsibility for that. I would say before there's an apology or regret, so that it's a true community conversation where people are really reconciling the past before making a statement, because we've seen in town before, you can have some leaders make a statement, but if there's not community understanding and support behind it, it's actually counterproductive.
Yeah.
Because then people get super angry about this statement because we didn't have to do all the groundwork. And actually, it's pretty similar to something we're going to say from Friends of Reading Metco about conversations that need to happen in town about the value of the Metco project. So I just wonder whether there might be some connections there.
Yeah, no, yeah, I appreciate that feedback. I agree. We've been trying to figure out the timing and what we can or can't. So, yeah, so I don't think Juneteenth will be that deliverable. In addition to the timeline, it is also, we want to use the Friends of Family, we want to use Juneteenth to try and have those conversations to get more feedback. So no, I appreciate that.
Well, a couple of quick comments on the Zoom. Joy, fantastic idea for the library installation honoring him. Maria agreed if Recal happens, that could be a place in addition down the line.
Oh, yeah.
And then Joy, this may fall in the Reading Cultural Council's domain as well, which certainly could. Just editorial comment on Oak Cliff Company. You can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, right? And I think ultimately we see that in a lot of the conversations around Reading is there are people who will join those conversations because they want to, and there are people who will not because they don't, right? So there's only so much you can do, and Ryan, you and I sort of talked about that when we were going through the appointing process as well, as how do we figure that out, right? What is the right way? What is the right way to have the conversation without feeling like for the person that's having the conversation, they're being hit over the head. So it's how do you engage without lecturing, right? For lack of a better way to say it, it's an interesting balance at times. So that challenge is there, but ultimately people have to want to engage. They have to be an interest there. All right, later.
I would just add though, that I think that the informational component is really crucial. You talked about having constructed this timeline. And I speak as someone who didn't grow up in Massachusetts, let alone Reading, and who didn't know anything about it. And, I moved to Reading in 2015. I don't think I learned about Bill Russell's connection to the town and the history and everything like that until I'd been here for at least 5 years. And so I think there's relevant to your comment, okay, I think there's probably a lot of people in town like me who just don't have the background and aren't even aware of the history. And so I think that that would be something worthwhile to consider, is sort of how to just do a general education campaign separate from any sort of accountability campaign, just so that people are aware of the history.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's anecdotally, I would almost always, anytime I met somebody new, kind of talk about, so have you heard about these committee, have you heard about Board Russell, and yeah, probably only 1 out of 10 people I
Yeah.
spoke with. Had any real understanding at all, and a couple other were aware that he was here, but they didn't really know the history, you know, I think, the Netflix documentary. Coming out, I think revived a lot of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to involve the schools, it might also be an interesting project to see if student volunteers could write a series of articles for one of the local newspapers or something like that.
We have it in high school.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you so much for giving us the update and keep engaged.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
So, moving on to the next part of the agenda, and this is our friend Running Metro discussion. And I hand it over to our esteemed colleagues. Thanks. School committee, you are here forewarned. It's our time to answer questions.
I'm there for us in the morning.
Good way to start it. Been there, done that, I hear you.
Good evening. I'm LaVonda Epps. I am co-chair for Friends of Running Metro Board. I haven't introduced myself already. One of the co-chair is Ilva. And thank you for having us. Thank you for adding the additional date as requested, because we were expecting the dates to be in election. We got changed, so thank you. Especially for spearheading those. Great to have the community on Zoom as well. That's a larger Zoom presence than we had last year. So thank you.
It's at least 20 people.
Yeah. And thank you for hosting us and granting us the space to speak and join in. So I know that you all sent some questions. We sat with Tom and Jared and Cindy. And we received the questions early on prior to, so we want to give the opportunity to speak towards those questions. Last year we did a 1-by-1 and it took a lot of time. So we don't want to do that towards time, and I know everyone wants to get home themselves. Everyone, well, I'm biased, I'm a New Yorker.
Not the only one, I see it. Say the names.
I'm half and half, I'm like, oh, sorry. Excellent. You're gonna be a winner.
I was gonna say that just, yeah, when you know.
So if there are any questions that you want to speak to, and if you don't touch upon any of them, then we'll circle back.
I'll defer to any of the other school committee members first, because you all know I can talk too long, it's too loud, so, Aaron, Carla, Laura, anybody want to start? Do you have the questions available, or do you want me to recount the questions? Good. Carla, go ahead, sure.
So I'm gonna credit Curtis to a lot of this and really defining what a model medical program should be. And with the successor, these two, that it's in good hands. I will tell you, Curtis and I have had many coffees together, and I won't say the sport, but last Tuesday, one of the sports, we had a pasta party at our house. We have a Boston Red resident on our team, and the captains of the team made sure that she attended both pasta parties, and we were able to get her home to her parents. And that, Curtis and I talked about that, is there has to be organic type of friendships made with students, so kids feel comfortable coming home with someone. And in building those relationships. So to me, that was a huge success. I'll take it a step further, that I would like us to have direct awareness with our coaches, and even our captains' parents, to make sure that that's included. So I think that's a step in the right direction, but I also think that we need to have a more proactive role just in trying to form the connections and make sure that those things are happening. But I think that, you know, there was a lot of emphasis and there was a lot of there was a lot of talk about the MECO program, with the video and everything that we did. And I feel like it's kind of died down a little bit, and I want to be able to kind of see it be brought up. And we were talking about it earlier for the students who are graduating, 'cause I know it's a big class. Definitely want to fill those spots. And if we can, and to have more of a representation in all of the schools. You know, it's hard sometimes to, you know, one school may have more than the other, but just to try and do that. I'm proud of the program. I feel like a lot of people in the community, there's been a lot of discussions about it. There's always more to do. There's always things to enhance. But I feel good about where we're going. I kind of just gave you
Yeah, you.
a.
Laura, Aaron, do you want to jump in next?
I'll let Aaron speak first, just as the longer standing. member.
Oh, why, thank you. I think there's been a lot of successes for the program. I am proud of the growth and the way that we've integrated a much larger population. I'm really proud of all that Curtis you accomplished in your time there. It's nice to see you there tonight. And I'm especially proud of the transition to the METCO coordinators in each of our schools. I think that's been really monumental for helping our Boston residents feel supported, feel recognized, feel valued. And it's a very necessary step toward diversifying our RPS staff more. There's obviously more work to do there, but it was a big step from where we were. So you know, I think those are definitely some of our successes.
Sure. Well, I'm coming into this as the newcomer on the committee, and so my history with interacting with the program is not as extensive. But the questions that stood out to me the most were about the need to educate the broader community about the importance, because coming in as a member of the broader community and now as a member of the school committee, I've already learned just in the last several months more than I knew about METCO from living in town for 10 years. And so I think there is definitely a space to be filled to just educate people more broadly about the program. The other thing that stood out to me in terms of improvements, and again, I'm coming at this only from my own parenting perspective here. I have a 7th grader and a 4th grader. And in my experience so far, my observation is that at least in the younger grades, there's not necessarily as much integration as I would like to see. And so I think that if we don't make an effort to help the kids form those kinds of connections, especially at a young age, then none of them is really getting the full benefit of the program, because they're not really learning about those kinds of interactions and the importance of diversity and all of the kind of things that spider web out from that. And I come from an anthropology background as well, and so I think about things in that framework. But I think that, you know, just having different populations from Boston residents and resident residents existing in parallel isn't necessarily the same thing as really forming those kinds of connections that make a full community. And so, again, this is purely based on my own observations for my kids' experiences. But if I extrapolate from that, I would imagine that is the case at beyond my own experience. And so I think that's something that's worth brainstorming about, is really how to, from the bottom up, from the kind of grassroots perspective, how do you let these kids form connections and build relationships in ways that will be then magnified as they continue to go through all the grades together.
That is the second part of the question, if anyone add or speak to it, or maybe come back, circle back to it, but how can we do this together?
Let's just come back to it when I'm saying, we can, um, one of my most, I'll start with the proudest part, right? And the improvements that have happened so far, but that we can still see. If we go back and I'll harken back to Carla's point and Curtis being in the room. When Tom first got here and Curtis first got here, we were a fledgling organization that was the bottom of the barrel. 40 kids or something along those lines. And within a year, we got to 100 kids. And within a year and a half or 2 years, Millie and others were holding Reading up as a model, community and a model school system. So that growth, that expansion, and all of the strategic thought that came with that, inclusive of, school adjustment counselors and whatnot, is something we all should be extraordinarily proud. And I think we've said it before, but we'll say it again. Thank you for that. For those of you who really invested to make that happen. It was not easy. It took a while, right? It took a lot of effort. It's not where we need to be, right? Last year when we were here, or the year before, time flies on me. I said I want us to be the top program in the state. I still do. Then somebody educated me, well, Newton has 400 kids, Tom, is that really what you want? Top program in the state doesn't necessarily mean number of kids, although I think we can grow in number of kids. I think we should grow in number of students. But if you think about it, 100 kids out of 3,800 is too small of a number in the grand scheme of things. Especially if you talk about what Laura's talking about true integration and true relationships and things along those lines. The number needs to be a greater percentage in the grand scheme of things. I think back in Curtis and I, when he first started, we talked about, when I was in Denver Public Schools, I was bused across the city from the white neighborhood to the black neighborhood. So we had our integration in the reverse sense at that point in time. But it was a much greater percentage than what we're seeing here in Reading. And that's part, and I think that's what we see across many of the MECA districts. The percentage numbers are still relatively small. So I'd love to see more growth and more improvement in that space. I would love to see more growth and more improvement at the state level in terms of funding. Right? I mean, ultimately, a lot of it ties back to that. And Carla and I had the opportunity to attend an event last year for that. And unfortunately, even with the school committee's recommendation and advocacy, we didn't see a rise in the money last year. This year might be a modest rise, I think, coming forward, but there needs to be more there. And I know Millie was trying to work hard with Jason to get some of that done, but we need to do more, right? We need to figure out how to do more, what that can look like, and what that can be. So going to the advocacy role, that's part of our job from a politics perspective, for lack of a better way to say it, is the advocacy that supports the funding. The question of success and how do I find it? I'm an academic focused person, left, right, and center. Looking at the end of the table, they know that I focus on that. I'm really happy to hear, and we've already talked about it a few times, the Ignite related work. But think about that, 6 kids out of 100, right? As much as the social and the relationship stuff is important, until the academic stuff matches, we haven't succeeded, right? At least in my mind. So whether you want to call that closing the gap, whatever you want to call it, I don't care what you call it. But until we see on the only measurable score we have available, whether you like it or don't like it, until we see the MCAS numbers not showing a 40-50% gap between our different populations, we have not exceeded or met the goals as necessary. And understanding what drives that, getting behind the research of what we can do to help close that, whether it's Ignite, whether it's other options. Last summer, we tried something else with various degrees of success. But how can we help the population improve academically as well? What do we need to provide from a school-home relationship perspective? What do we need to provide from an after-school or before-school perspective? How else can we help close the gap? For me, a lot of it is an academic related side of it too. Social side, great, 100% on board with what Laura's saying, but the academic side of it is. So now to your question, how can we do this together? That's the hardest stuff, right? That's the hard work. I mean, it's my, to a degree, it's part of my last answer, like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? And I think it might tie back to Carla's answer of social. Right, the social alignment of, this is me, but then ladies, please jump in, and others, please jump in, right? The social alignment breaks down barriers. Lack of a way to say it, there is a natural barrier from a physical location perspective for some of our students, for almost all of the students in the program, right? So how do we break down that barrier? And Curtis, you've tried multiple things, you know, whether it's the kites at the park or other things, we've, you know, the roller skating, I think you all did, you know, earlier this year, you know, code switching, you know, video, and hopefully there were a lot of people that were there that kind of had aha moments. We need to figure out how to get to that aha moment for different people. And right, wrong, or indifferent, one of the benefits of having a committee like ours is we have different political persuasions. Right, which hopefully can help figure out what those aha moments are for different people. You know, and you know, whether it's one-to-one conversations with some of us, whether it's, you know, us bringing different people together, we have to figure that out. I don't have a clean and clear answer. If we did, we wouldn't be here asking the question. But the brainstorming ideas and how we get there is probably the next step. So, anybody else want to add to that?
How often do the students have opportunities to have frank conversations about this and to say, you know, we feel more or less integrated, or we have ideas about ways that we could try to,
Yeah, four members here.
Okay. So I mean, again, I'm the newbie, so I apologize for lack of pre-existing knowledge. But, you know, are we listening to what the students themselves are, to what degree are we listening to what the students themselves are saying in terms of those kinds of suggestions?
In terms of the high school, I know, Dr. Hardy, you correct me if I'm wrong, there was an intern, Barbara.
Yes.
Barbara Best, right.
We're-
And so, she did a lot of focus groups, speaking to students about their experience, the, impact of the program and things that they would, like to see move forward, and that was shared, I think with us and the community. As far as at the elementary level, which where I am, we do have those conversations. Me as a coordinator with the Boston residents, so it hasn't really gone outside of that. I do know actually that some of our teachers, specifically at Birch Meadow, they attended the MDA conference in December, and that really motivated them. And so some of the teachers decided to purchase a book that kind of describes and talks about the Reading Medical program.
Right.
And they kind of read that in class
Okay.
as a whole class.
Yeah.
And kind of did like a reflection piece on it, and had the kids kind of write up like something important or like most of our medical program. But I don't think I agree, I don't think it's happening
Yeah.
as frequent as it needs to be.
Yeah, well, and especially if it's only happening with the Boston residents, that's putting the onus entirely on them, it shouldn't be, and so I think it would probably be important, I don't know whether from a curriculum perspective, whether it's something that you could formalize, but
Yeah.
to be able to have something systematic in place that forces all of the kids to be participating in that kind of conversation, because, you know, again, I'm dealing mostly with the younger kids, but at least at the elementary level, my guess is the kids just don't even stop and think about it, like they just, you know, they kind of know that, oh, these kids come in from Boston, but they don't know what that means, they don't know what that entails, they don't know the challenges with it. I mean, it took me a really long time to drive down here tonight, and I was thinking about the students who have to do back and forth commutes every day, and I was thinking how challenging that must be, just from not just from a logistical perspective, from, you know, limiting perspective in terms of the time they have to do schoolwork and the times they have to do extracurricular activities. And I think that probably a large percentage of the white student population or the Reading resident population it's just not on the radar. And so I think that one thing that maybe we as a school committee could try to do is interface more with the coordinators and with, you know, the individual teachers to come up with some ideas for how those topics can be directly addressed so that the students are maybe forced into thinking about them a little bit more critically.
Maybe do that found family in reverse when they can see.
Yeah.
All right. You got to say everyone.
Sarah, Cheryl, I see your hand up. I just want to get one more thing in the room and then we'll come to you. Sarah.
Yeah, I appreciate everything you're raising. They're excellent points and definitely work to do. One thing we did add in where we thought it might be helpful, starting 3 years ago, all of our new staff attend a designated meeting about a month into the school year, where we take them through what the MECO program is, what its history is. We talk specifically about some of the challenges that our Boston kids might face, and we talk with them about, you know, how to address it in the classroom with students and how to be supportive of all. So a small step, but
Yeah,
something
no, that's
that we
great.
felt was important, that as new staff into our school, that part of the culture.
Yeah.
We are a MECO district, and one of their responsibilities as a staff member, you know, to make sure that they're supporting them.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay, Cheryl, you have your hand up. You want to add something?
Yes, I forget who it was who asked, about, are we listening to the kids?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'm one of the advisors of the only student of color club / group in Reading Public Schools. And the students presented not only to school committee, but to their student body and to their students, to their staff members, 4 years ago. We are now 4 years running as a SOCA club and talking to the students on a daily basis. Not much has changed for them. You guys see what you see on your level, and yes, we bring in more kids. Yes, we bring in more numbers. Yes, has been some changes in Reading Public School. We've gotten staff in each of the buildings. But that staff that we have in each of those buildings, let's just say they work for the MECO program. So outside of, if the MECO program was to leave Reading Public Schools today, would you still have staff of color working in your district? One, we have been saying that we are putting out, you know, openings out there, and we're trying to do recruiting and so forth. But again, there's no other than the quote unquote staff that work for the MECO program. Our students are not exposed to other staff that look like them, that represent where their backgrounds or where they come from, their cultures, or anything else. So when we ask, are we listening to the kids? Yes, there was a woman who did talk to the kids, but again, they talked, they heard, but are they listening? And are they actually making the changes and implementing the things that the students talked about that is wrong with the program? That's my concern, because I'm happy that we're bringing in numbers, but it doesn't make any difference if we're bringing in numbers and we're not giving quality to these students, because they deserve it and the families deserve it just like anyone else. And so when we talk about, you know, building these relationships, how are we planning these activities? How are we planning events? When we host, when we have sports or extracurriculars that families are hosting things, and they're doing things early in the morning or late in the evening. And our Boston resident students are getting the information on the latter end of things, and they're kind of having to make do or make way, or we're getting the information late. So then we're trying to implement things into our children's life so that they feel like they belong, so that they feel like they're part of the community, so that they feel like they're part of this program, but they're not really being taken into consideration on the larger scheme of things.
Thank you, Shirley. I don't know that that's necessarily something that can be directly addressed in this conversation per se. There's a lot there that is to a degree operational from an execution perspective. I do believe that what Barbara listened to, she actually did firmly listen to. Execution after listening is a different question than listening, though, right? The ability to execute after listening is a different question as well. You know, we have had conversations about some of the challenges there are with hiring. It's not straightforward in any way, shape, or form. One would like to be able to say, hey, here's a position and you have a ton of qualified applicants and they all want to come to Reading, and that's just not always the case. You know, hopefully that will start to change over time, and I think the reputation of a district has a lot to do with that, right? So it's a little bit of a chicken or egg type of conversation. Like Curtis, you and I have had a little bit of that conversation in the past. It's not an easy conversation, Tom. I know you and I have had that conversation. So it's not, I'm trying to say that it's not for lack of effort, but maybe there can still be more or better effort, for lack of a better way to put it. So that said, it's easier said than done. But I'm sure there are other relations or portions of this conversation. Anything else?
Tom, I thank you for saying that, because it is true. But we also have to think about the staff that we're bringing in, and not leaving them out on an island by themselves where they don't feel supported, or I mean, just because you get older in age doesn't mean that isolation goes away if you are the only one in your building that looks like you. And anytime that something happens, you know, you're the person that they're looking for to fix the issue or to deal with the problem.
Yeah. And I think that was that's a common theme I've heard in the past as well, Shirley. So thank you for sharing that as well. And Aaron, your hand's up. Jump in.
Hi, so I apologize. I didn't realize we were addressing all the questions at once. For some reason, I thought we were going in order. So you were probably like, why did she stop talking there? I'm like trying very hard to follow everyone and hear everyone, but I can hear some of you better than others. I just want to say that I agree. I think that diversity in staff has really plagued us, for lack of a better term. I'm not sure I know a better answer to it, but I think it's vital that we continue working aggressively to better diversify our staff so that our staff reflect our student body. And I think it's vital to the ongoing success of the METCO program. As far as educating the broader community, I think there's a disconnect with a lot of families too, like Reading residents. I think it goes beyond the students, the work that we need to do. You know, Curtis did such a phenomenal job of getting the message out that we are all METCO. And I think that took us further than we've been in a long time, like Tom said. You know, but we were at such a low bar back then. I think that there's still a lot, you know, people will come to me, there's still a lot of confusion over how kids get into the METCO program, why kids are in the METCO program. I still hear it at terrible sentiment of the idea that we can send them back, which is horrifying. So it's out there. It comes up every year, sometimes with multiple kids. So to me, that shows work to do with the families as well as the students, in terms of just really embracing that everyone who attends Reading Public Schools is a Reading Public School student. So I, as proud as I am of as far as we've gotten, I do agree there's more work we can be doing. And I think it's my role as a school committee member to continue to push the administration to continue to prioritize this. I do believe that they do. But that's where I see my role as the advocacy to make sure that it remains a priority for the district. So I apologize. I sort of cut myself off short, but this is a good conversation. It's one that I'm glad we're having.
You two wanted to have a few words to finish us off, I think.
So actually, Erin, thank you so much for what you've said then, because you brought us home. Lavonda and I, as co-chairs, had some prepared remarks we wanted to share about what we see as the achievements of Friends of Reading Metco over the past 12 months and what we see as potential improvements. Everything you've said you want to improve is what we really want to improve. I don't want to go through these prepared remarks now, because what I've sat here and heard is there's a proportion of our staff that are potentially feeling isolated, that there is a proportion of our students that don't feel they belong, that feel isolated, that are not being served the same way for institutional reasons, not because any one person is deciding, but for institutional reasons. And it's actually not okay. It's not okay. And so I'm asking, following on from what Erin said, I'm asking, I believe with my co-chair, asking fellow board members can you take charge of this? Because I really appreciate all the things you've said. They are all true. I want to ask myself, if I heard this about a group of students who all look like my own children, would I think it's acceptable? And I would not. So I want to ask the school committee to, as Erin has said, please take charge of this. We're a group of volunteers. We have as you do, I know school committee is volunteers. We're also volunteers. We're also volunteers, also less well-resourced volunteers, okay, but still volunteers. So can you take charge of these things so that next year when we come back, there is some movement. We listen to the students. Yes, we've heard from teachers, and we've done something because we take responsibility for all of our students and all of our staff. We will help you. We will be alongside you, but can you please take charge? Anything else? Anything else from other people here, board members? Anything?
So just real quick on that, just because I don't like having a question unanswered. It's a foible of mine, better way to put it. So you all know this, I think, but I'll just say it for anyone who doesn't know. The role of the school committee is basically threefold: policy, budget, goals, and reviews, right? So when you ask us to take charge, that's in one of those three categories. Budget, to a degree, is what it is. And we've, with the help of Curtis and Metco, we've secured pretty significant funding, but could more be done in advocacy to the state to get more funding? Yes, I think there's something we can do and continue to do. Whether it yields any fruit is a different question from a macro perspective, right? But we can certainly ask and push for more as a collective body, not individually, but as a collective body. Goals and review, we absolutely could put some things, and we have historically put some things in there. The measurements are the challenge. The so what, how you achieve that is the biggest question. Some people know that when I first joined, there was a goal, even before any of the other school committee members were here, there was a goal that was the closing the gap goal, right? which was completely undefined. And if anybody really pays attention, you can close the gap in many ways, right? You can close the gap by lowering the bar for everybody, which is what was happening, or you can close the gap by raising the bar and then raising it faster for those in the lower scale, so the bar is higher, which is what we're trying to do, right? That latter part. What we need to do is figure out how we do that within a construct and what supports and services and scientific methods support that portion of it. But then there's other goals we can put into this from a sense of belonging perspective, which is in our current goals. From a and that's part of the reason why Barbara did what she did, right? From a staffing perspective, which not in this current instance of goals to my recollection, but in previous instances of goals. So we can talk about those kind of things and figure out where they fit. I'm not sure I see a policy fit here, frankly, off the top of my head. I'll keep thinking about it. People know I think about policy more often than I should probably. But I think there are those two natural progressions to help own it. Okay, as your suggestion.
Thank you. And when I said I'd throw away our prepared remarks, that meant that I threw away something that's super important, is actually those conversations about the goal of students belonging and then looking at which students feel like they belong and which don't, is a conversation that Lavondra and I had, started with Curtis and with Dr. Milachevsky 18 months ago, I think, and since taken up very briefly when Derica and Cynthia went close. And then I think that's that we actually do have all of the tools. We do have the tools. It's the will and the leadership, which we've definitely seen from Dr. Milachevsky and from the NCO co-directors. But I think we've talked about there needs to be more resources, and then just a charge from the small committee to say this is the expectation. All of our students need to feel they belong. All parents need to be engaged, and who isn't. And really, I know you like to be a data person. It's one of the root causes of why some people are feeling they belong and address that. It's not just the surface stuff.
Yep. Just to Maria, I see your hand in the air. I'm going to say yes, but I want to limit you to a limited time so we can move on to the next bit of agenda. So you have something you can share in a minute or two?
Who me? Do you think I talk a lot? I don't know why you would think this. I want to throw out that I just want to throw a success story. I feel like, I was on the CPAC board a couple years ago, and I feel like we got the message that it would be really good to have someone who was a Boston resident family on our board. And at the time, I was like, oh, are there kids in Metco that even have IEPs? Like, I similarly was very ignorant. I did not know. But that, personally, that was really good for me. I got to know a lot of the wonderful people here, and we had that commonality of like, it wasn't about just like artificially trying to bring us together. Like, we literally had a commonality and like a common mission of helping our kids with extra needs. And so I'm thinking of other committees, I'm just trying to brainstorm here, like PTOs, like how much encouragement or pressure is there to make sure that there is, somehow a Boston resident member family somehow represented on the various committees throughout, because I feel like CPAC is like a good example. Thank you, Zia, of having that voice and that proximity. And I'm done. That's it, Tom. I'm muting myself.
Oh, thank you. Yes, please do. Close it up.
Yep, perhaps it's how you requisition is written your job description.
Sure.
It is not targeting persons of color.
Okay. I think that sort of feedback, don't be afraid to say it, let it out, right?
I'm not.
Let me tell you something.
It's just, then we're looking, when Curtis was hired.
Yeah.
We went through a whole first round, and first round, there was not a person on that interview that was present. And all 10 of us rejected it. I rewrote it. I wrote the job description. Then we got 5 people below like me. So I sent it to the previous superintendent report, Tom Payment.
Yeah.
They did some more editing, but it went with what I rewrote, and they ended up with. So maybe you recommendations to your advance. I don't know what it looks like.
I think that's valid feedback, and Tom, I'm sure that Michelle would be happy to sit down and look at that and see if there's language that can be adjusted and whatnot. More appealing. Well, boundaries. All right, so I said she was gonna close it, but apparently Curtis wants to close it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something real quick, I'll make it short, but a lot has been done. And obviously it's not where everybody wants it to be, but a lot has been done and we're moving in the right direction. Reading's moving in the right direction, climbing that mountain. From some of the comments that's been made about staff and belonging, there's 32 medical districts, and I know for a fact that when these comments are made in every district, but in not every district is it actually being taken in. So steps in Reading is actually being taken in. It's just gonna take time, and we all don't want the time because we all want everything to happen tomorrow, right? So when I hear Sarah says, for new employees coming in, we making sure that they're aware of what MECO is, like that's the step in trying to make changes to make sure people belong. The fact that Reading and MECO combine to pay for MECO SATs, those are the steps to attract more people. Because one, if it was just on MECO like the other 31 districts, we wouldn't have 8 staff members, right? We would have only had 2 or 3. So we're all doing everyone's doing a lot of work. We all want it to happen now. We just gotta keep pushing at it, and it will come. It will happen, and we'll get what we're looking for. But I just want to acknowledge that the information is being taken in. It's gonna take some time to actually deliver on those things. But at least it's being taken in. Where I know for a fact that's not even being taken in every district, the other 31 district. So I'm happy to see what's continuing to happen. And little birdie told me about some stuff that's going to continue to happen, which will also emphasize like the work is happening. So I just want to say Reading's in a good place, and everyone just has to try and put their hands together and get working together and continue to build. But it's a lot of work. So just acknowledge that it's a lot of work. It's going to take time.
Okay, my attempts to stop us from moving forward is not working, but that's okay, because input is important. So Ellie, your hand's in the air. Thanks, please let us hear what you have to say as well.
So in order for us to help build the school and make it look a little bit like us, we should be allowed to have links of those opportunities and job opportunities that are open in Reading. I attend a church here in Boston that we have individuals that are looking for work and have the credentials to work in a school. So if you allow us to spread the word, we can help fill those spots up so our kids can have individuals that look like us in the building. So allow us to help you.
Thank you, Ellie, that'd be awesome. And that's an avenue. We have all these like professional networks, but sometimes it's just networking, regular human networking that will help close the gap as well. So thank you for that. Okay, and with that said, we'll finish on that topic. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody else, for the discussion on it as well. And let's move on to the state of Reading MECO. And Cindy and Jarek, I think you guys have been.
While we're ready here.
I'm really sorry, I hate to draw attention, but she's there's a person off stage who's gonna stay off stage. But we're super lucky that one of our Boston parents, whose son is a sophomore at the high school, junior at the high school, see? Tracy Gamble, who is also a member of the MECO board.
Upstairs earlier. She's been sitting there quietly.
Yeah.
She was sitting back there.
So amazing to have a Boston parent who's a Reading parent and also a member of the MECO board just recently in the last 3 years. Beautiful, Tracy.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to pull up a video?
Yeah. So we're gonna share a whole presentation video.
The only problem is, is it this one? No. So, actually, I have.
Okay, is that?
So do you have it?
we're gonna share with you. We apologize, quick, technical
Oh,
stuff.
it's good, it is a site.
Oh, yeah, you want to. We'll take a 2-minute break, Tom, all right?
You can figure, I mean, we'll work on logistics, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm trying to down. I'm going to speak.
It's on your, Sharon.
No, because I just.
Yes. Finish it. You should be getting it.
You're looking forward.
There, right?
Look at that.
Hey, technology work. Okay.
Or no, we're on a quick break. You want to say hello to everyone while you're here?
Sure.
Sure, yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'm Darnell Billings. I am the current board chair for the MECO Inc. Board of Directors. Glad to see all your faces here. So if you ever have any questions about anything MECO related, feel free to find me. I'm easy to reach. I'm a real estate agent by day and MECO board chair every other hour. Pleasure to have you guys here. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you, Darnell. Thank you, Darnell. Thank you. All right. That's what done. All right, good evening, everyone. We are excited to get into what is gonna be a fun part of the presentation, which is.
Good record, it's not sharing.
Very excited us.
Gotta get us back to the ship, so this is actually shared on the Zoom as well, otherwise they won't see anything. So. Share. All right. Now, you can. Sorry.
All right. We are excited tonight to present an overview update of what's been happening across the MECO program this year. Before we dive in, it'd be nice to share just an update of everyone who's in the room, who's part of our staff and team internally, because we have a bunch of folks on the Zoom as well from our Reading Public Schools team. So for those of you who haven't met, I'm Tom Notes, I'm the superintendent of schools.
Sarah Hardy is superintendent for learning and teaching.
Jericho Santiago, co-MECO director and school adjustment counselor for middle schools.
Cindy Marte, co-MECO director, school adjustment counselor at Birch.
Sonia Lumba, I'm at Killam, I'm the MECO coordinator and school adjustment counselor.
I'm Mike Calderon, MECO coordinator at Parker Middle School.
Luke Ulysses, MECO coordinator at Reading High.
Hi, I'm Shaquanda Brown, MECO coordinator, school adjustment counselor at Barrows Elementary School.
That's everyone. And I just want to thank everyone for that conversation before too. I think it's great to feel both things at once, which is some enthusiasm and pride about things that are going well or progress we made, and a continued focus on doing what we need to do for students to improve their day-to-day experience. And there is a long way to go, despite progress we made. And I think it's great to feel both of those things simultaneously. I think that's where many of us feel. I want to give a shout out. Oh, Luke, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to throw in something real quick. The track meet's about to be over, and the Boston kids are all about to leave, so I can hear them making a lot of noise right here. So I'm going back and forth. So I got to make sure they all get on the bus. I might have to step out on the field. Yeah.
And I'm going to speak about the counselors a little bit, but I'd also just like to say, I know that there was some credit and acknowledgement given to like myself, to Curtis, our team. Obviously, the day-to-day work that's happening, why our program is improving. is staff, yes, families, yes. The ones who I think are driving the improvement the most is our counselors and our coordinators who are day in and day out. Not only improving our experience for our Boston resident students, but our Reading resident students, our staff. They wear so many different hats and do it all so well. So while I'm going to speak about them later, before Luke left, I want to give a huge thank you and encouragement. You are the ones really moving the needle in our district and our community. Thank you. But we are going to jump our agenda tonight, go to our senior spotlight, super fun, to celebrate and highlight our graduating seniors. We'll then talk a little bit about program enrollment, just what our numbers look like across different schools. Here's some updates from 24-25 through a lot of pictures. Then you'll hear from students and staff what's going on in the program, a little video that was put together by Cindy and Jerica. I will take a couple of minutes to do a little bit more of an in-depth thank you to our METCO SACs and coordinators talking about impact, what they do in our community, and then I will, this is the one Curtis said, the little birdie told me, we'll do a little bit about the future of the METCO director position too here. So I'm gonna turn it over, we'll start with the program enrollment. You can see just broken down by school, where we are. This is for this current year. These numbers will shift next year. I will say Cindy and Jerica are very thoughtful about trying to balance across schools, but as you know, it is tricky just in certain, grade levels and staying in an appropriate. So, I'd like to go back to this number that was jumped 22 to 23. We would like to make a similar jump in the future, but unfortunately at this point, METCO has told us that they are not entertaining any expansions beyond sort of what was within our cap. Our cap is listed at 106. So we are not allowed to go above 106 to be able to receive funding as well. We are continuing to push and to advocate, but that is something that at this point we're stuck. All right, now to the fun part.
We're gonna highlight our seniors. We're gonna start with Deja Grant. She'll be attending Framingham State University to begin her journey in the medical field. And she is currently in the process of enlisting in the Air Force Reserve, and she's been a part of the Reading METCO program since she was in kindergarten. Then we have Camilla, who will be attending Bunker Hill Community College to become an ultrasound technician, and she has been a part of the program since the 1st grade. We have Jeremiah. He is attending Wentworth Institute of Technology. He was a football captain for Reading High. He is a participant of track. He is a part of SOCA and student government, and he has been a part of the program since kindergarten. Then we have Miss Tamia Jones. I don't know if she's still on, but if she'd like to speak to herself, that's awesome. She'll be attending an HBCU this upcoming fall, and she's been a part of the program since kindergarten, and she was also a cheer captain for Reading.
Next, we have Jamal Palmer Jr. He will be going to Dean College. He is also a participant in football and track, and he's been in Reading METCO since 11th grade, so just 2 years in the program. Next, we have Devon Mercy. He will be going to Endicott. This year, he was a powerhouse on the football field, so holding it down for the football team, and he's been in Reading METCO since 2nd grade. Next, we have Mr. Tavion. Tavion actually just called us today. He told me he got a scholarship to attend Wentworth Institute of Technology. Tavion, and he's also been in Reading METCO since 1st grade. Next, we have Sydney Smiley. Sydney is still undecided between 2 schools, but she's also been in Reading METCO since the 1st grade.
Right, can we give it up all of our graduates?
We're gonna talk about the things we've done in across our program. This is honestly one of my favorite things to do is family and parent outreach and engagement. So when Cindy and I took over this role, we were like, oh my gosh, we have 3 weeks to put together a fall event with some remaining funds that we had. With the help of Sonia, because she's the president of Boston, she hooked us up with Be Healthy, and we were able to host this awesome event where I think we had like just over 50 families, and we even had some Reading residents come out to Roslindale. We had a fall event that turned winter event because of the time of the year with buying arts and crafts. So we there was a lot of engagement there, and there was a lot of food. I forget which parent catered.
Oh, Miss Maureen Daly.
Yes.
From Birch Meadow. She catered our event, and it was delicious food. Soul Food Persuasion, if anyone's interested. So Jerica talked a little bit about our family event in the fall that took place in Rosendale. So what we try to do is we try to make the events accessible for both Boston and Reading residents. So what we did was in March, we hosted our skating night at Roller World in Woburn. And we had over 120 students and families in attendance.
Wait, baby, hold on.
Yep, so it was definitely a successful event. The event was open from elementary all the way up to high school. So we had engagement from all levels, and it was really nice to engage not only with parents, but we can see staff engaging with the students as well outside of school.
And it's always so amazing when faculty attends these events because the kids are like, what, you exist outside?
Yeah.
You're here?
And it definitely means a lot to them.
Yeah, so you get the hug right there with Jason and Principal Burnham over at Birch.
So
at the middle school level and high school level, we do what's called honor roll lunches. Personally, for me, if a student gets to see, and I know they worked their behind off, I'm allowing them to be a part of that honor roll lunch because they tried their best and their hardest. So here we have the students pictured who have earned their honor roll lunch. There's more students who do earn this. That's just the pictures we have. Oh, and then we had the MECO Advocacy Day, which was really nice for students and families to come together. I think a goal of ours in the future is to get some more members of the community involved and our Boston resident families involved in this as well. But for last minute, I would say we had a good turnout.
Well, we were recognized at MECO Advocacy Day as one of the districts that had the most attendees. And because of that, we got a pizza party from one of the state reps, which we still have to organize. Representative Gordo, yep, incoming pizza, yeah. So next, I know Dr. Hardy shared about Ignite Tutoring, so we just wanted to provide some pictures of some of our friends doing their tutoring. And then towards the right, we have some after school tutoring, specifically in middle school. So what we did this year is that, so in middle school, one day out of the week, there's a late bus. And so on that day, we provided after school like tutoring and assistance for the students to access. So we were able to provide stipends to the teachers to provide that after school support to the students after school in middle school, both Parker and Coolidge.
Last year, we started an end of the year celebration. As we all know in this room, our students are waking up some as early as 5 o'clock in the morning. So we wanted to make sure that we really highlighted all of their efforts and successes. So last year, we had an end of the year bash for them. We had parents donating food. We fed them with food. Kurt knew some folks and he got us the bouncy house. So we're looking to do that again this year at some point in June.
And then something to note is that this event was for both elementary and middle school, just because we wanted to provide them with the space to engage with one another, especially fifth graders going on to middle school, kind of making those connections early on.
So one thing that the MECO team across the board does is really support our students, not only in school, but out of school. So I know many of us have attended their football games, their basketball games. Down in the corner, we had a student who broke his leg. So Michael and I went to his house, brought him some food, brought him his homework. Then you have Miss Cindy supporting our students in a dance competition they had. And then to the far right, Miss Laura and I enabled her, but we completed that project in a short amount of time. It's an animal cell that she's holding. And we also support our staff who do their own extracurricular outside of school. So the students are seen here. We went to Miss Sonia's dance recital.
Fundraiser.
Yeah.
And so she was able to get us some tickets. We were able to make it an event with some other kids as well. So we were able to bring them and support Sonia, but also bring the students as well.
It was hilarious. The kids were like, I didn't know Miss Sonia could move like that. How would she be moving like that?
Visit them in Boston.
Where's this? What's the Strand Theater?
Strand Theater. And then, so here we have some images from our code switching documentary, which we did in partnership with for Reading Metco, and that's something that we definitely want to continue moving on, is fostering that partnership with them. So we were definitely proud of hosting this event. It was a great turnout that definitely started some very important conversations, which we want to continue moving forward, right? So not only would we want to do more community events, but also partner together in different events, you know, encouraging our Boston and Reading residents to attend their events. I know they also reach out and do some kind of try to reach out to families to get to our events. And so what we did also this year is during our enrollment, when we were doing interviews with new families, Lavonda and Ilka were so gracious enough to be able to kind of meet with families, right? So kind of included them into our initial interviews. So after Jerica and I did the initial interviews, we kind of did a warm handoff to Ilka and Lavonda, so they can just have a parent, have that connection, kind of ask some questions that maybe they will, you know, feel comfortable asking us, right? And kind of creating that connection already prior to coming into the district. So that was definitely something that we loved and we want to continue moving forward. And next is just a little video of students and staff talking about the importance of MECO and what they want the community to know about MECO.
Here with,
Trey, Stucky.
and he's going to share with us how the MECO program has impacted him and how having his coordinators in the building has impacted him.
It has impacted me because in sixth grade, I've been here since sixth grade. In sixth grade, no one really knew like the struggle, like being from Boston and stuff. My grade, I felt like he wouldn't really talk to nobody, visit nobody. But seventh grade, first and development came, like my behavior started going like good. I was still latched on. I started playing times, but it was better because I had a better mental grade. I was here more often. So now I was like last show, we see what put me to the side and then chill or talk to me before I even do last show. The eighth grade year, when we had a medical coordinator here all day, and Parker helped me a lot because it helped me a lot because someone in the building was here 24/7, and I felt like I can go to my or any medical coordinator. I was here 24/7. I can go to them and tell them this is what I'm going through, because I feel like they will feel it more than a guidance teacher or any teacher that teaches here. So I feel like a medical coordinator is really helpful to be in a building with kids all times.
What do you want the committee to know about the program?
So it's really fun and it brings a lot of opportunities, like especially going to school, and it brings a lot of friends. And it's one new district. Well, schools, I love school. I love going here. I've been going since 4th grade. It's been a really fun experience.
The importance of it is she's really helpful in going to us. Really fun focus in class. It's nice to have this underage adjustment or just someone to talk to, especially the one in our building, but Tiago is really sweet to me. And I think she actually takes care of the problems I have.
I say the coordination of the buses is going really well with the program. To make sure the buses get here on time, and if they're not going to be able to get here, then they'll let the office know so they won't be penalized for being late.
All right. What do you want the community to know about the program?
Even though they have to get the kids have to get up earlier than most of the kids here in Reading to make it to the bus stop, to make it to school on time. So if they're obviously going to be real tired.
Hi, I'm Marielle Mucha, and I just wanted to share that as a 4th grade teacher in Reading, how impactful the MECO program has been in this community. I believe it broadens our community, our perspectives, and provides students with opportunities and staff to build relationships with people outside their most close Reading community. I think that all the staff is nice. They make sure that the Metco kids are on time in school and they're very supportive too.
Okay. And what has the impact of a Metco site been on the building?
Well, like Santiago, who is one of the counselors, she made sure that all Metco kids feel welcome and safe. And she makes sure that all the Metco kids are like, hey, doing well.
Hi, I'm Steve, the principal of Birch Meadow Elementary. And there's a few things I think our community know about the METCO program. First of all, it's not simply a program, it's a partnership. And the METCO program isn't just beneficial to students who come to us from Boston. It broadens our perspectives, it deepens our understanding, and it challenges us to grow as educators, students, and neighbors. As a principal, I see how METCO strengthens our school every single day. It brings vibrancy to our classrooms, it deepens our conversations, and it creates friendships that exist well beyond the playground. It's a powerful reminder that diversity is one of our greatest strengths. I'm proud to be a METCO community.
Love that I've made many connections and I love the trips that we went on and I love all the teachers and the Metco coordinators. They're all nice.
And now, Parker Street Radio. What has the impact of a Metco site been on your building?
I feel like that it's gonna have a good impact to the upcoming next year with Santiago and I feel like I can talk to her about anything.
Have words about running Metco.
I love the nicety of the teachers and the people around me. And I also love the support that it gives you.
What I love about Metco is we get to make new friends. We get to go on really fun field trips and we get fun Fridays with the city.
What I like about the Metco program is that I get to meet new people and make new friends. What I like about the
Hi, I'm Melissa Milner. I'm a fourth grade teacher here at Birch Meadow Elementary School in Reading. And what I really enjoy most about the program is getting to know the students, and they're really fun. And it's nice to have diversity and differences in the classroom, and they bring a lot. They bring a lot to our classroom community. They are funny friends, they are energetic friends, and they're a hoot. They're a hoot. The one thing I would wish is that they could stay after school. So I'm doing a drama club, and I have a student in my room that would love to do the drama club, but she doesn't have access to a bus or something like that to be able to stay after school to do that. But they're awesome.
What I love about Metco is that I got to meet new friends and we go on fun field trips over Cindy.
I'm here with our civics teacher, Ms. Folk, and I'm here to ask her, what do you want the community to know about the program?
What I would to the Reading community is that we are the METCO program. That the entire district has agreed to be part of this program. And so every student is a member of the METCO program. Like, we're all in this together. And I guess I would want the community to know as well that students that come from Boston really make a huge sacrifice in terms of travel time, coming to school and going home from school. It's lengthened, and that they've really made a serious commitment to be here, a part of the Reading Public School system, and that we're all in this together.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Valenti. I teach fifth grade Birch Meadow. My favorite part of the METCO program is the relationships that I get to form with Boston resident students and watching the relationships that other students get to form. I've really watched students grow and develop in really meaningful ways and form these great connections this year with other students that they normally wouldn't have a chance to form these connections with. And that crossover is just so important in forming this society that we all hope to have. I really got to watch my Boston resident students grow in amazing ways this year and develop show really amazing leadership qualities in ways that are really beyond their years.
What I love about having the METCO program here in Reading is that it gives us a chance to have
diverse and different perspectives. Because I think that it helps not only staff, but also students to be able to hear and understand different perspectives. And I think that's a skill that we need going way beyond elementary, high school, college, and just in this world, is that we need to be able to hear different perspectives and not just live within our own, but understand each other.
I'm here with Lisa and Valentina. We're gonna share with us what their MECO experience means to them and what it's like to have their MECO core in the building with them. Yeah. That I'm like, alright, like, I feel like they match our energy, and I like how, like, they'll talk to the students if there's anything bad on the bus or whatever. And I just like having the MECO coordinators here. Like it's good because like when you're struggling to like do something like project and stuff, you help me. So yeah. I feel like it's good as MECO coordinator because then like we'll upset if there's like a problem on the bus or like if you need help. We could like come in here, or if you're like a quiet space, maybe we could like come in here and relax, and then we cool down and go back to home.
All right,
And he.
Great. So I'm hearing some of the students' perspective, staff perspective. We wanted to take a minute just to, I think the most common theme I heard through those two was the impact that school counselors had, MECO SACs on our students and our school communities. As a little bit of just context, so as the community knows, a few years ago, we had only one staff member for the entire MECO program. That was the MECO director. And at this point, before I make an announcement in a minute, we have 6 MECO SACs plus 2 MECO coordinators. And we know day in and day out, these are the roles that have made a really difficult to quantify impact in such positive ways. The relationship with students, staff, families is absolutely tremendous. And we'd just like to say thank you to our MECO SACs for the role that you play in our school. I'd also like to say thank you to the school committee who helped us think creatively outside the box to have this funded through both half out of the district operating budget and half out of the MECO budget. And there was a question earlier, what would happen if the MECO funding were to go away? I would have a hard time believing that these roles would go away. I'm sure that this would be at the top of the list for the district finding a way to keep our school council roles, given the impact that they've had on our school community. We have a couple of quotes here come from students and staff. They may be a little difficult to read, so I don't know if we can just, if someone can read out that first quote. We made there's 6 quotes total. I'd love to just hear them out for the room. Ryan, you might take it the first one.
Sure. The MECO coordinator, SAC, now in her 2nd year as MECO coordinator at Barrows Elementary, has made a meaningful difference in creating a more inclusive and supportive school community. Through her compassionate presence and insightful advocacy, more students feel seen, heard, and empowered to succeed. She helps staff better understand and respond to the experiences of our Boston and Reading resident students, ensuring their voices and needs are part of every conversation.
Thanks, Ryan. So I might take it the middle one.
Our MECO coordinator plays a vital role in supporting the social and emotional needs of our students while building strong, meaningful connections between our Reading and Boston families. She is an integral member of our leadership and crisis teams, helping ensure all students feel safe, supported, and seen each day.
Coverage.
Oh, I can't see that.
The MECO coordinator has been a game changer for the culture of our school. He meets the students at their level. He talks to them about their goals, both inside and outside of school, and he partners with families to support students. He is a team player, he's kind, and his heart is always in the right place. We have loved working with him, and he has been a wonderful addition to our team.
Oh my gosh.
Please type in that one in the middle.
That's good. I can see the one in the middle of big. I think I can do that. I can do the first one. The second one, no. So our MECO coordinator is a valued member of the Parker School community. He is always visible and approachable and has made strong connections with students, with staff and students. He serves as a role model and liaison between school and home.
Our MECO coordinator, Zach, plays a pivotal role in fostering a sense of belonging and advancing equity within our school community. As a member of both instructional leadership team and school council, she helps build meaningful bridges between students, families, and staff, regardless of their backgrounds. She coordinates school assemblies, partners with our PTO to ensure events are inclusive and accessible, and collaborates with staff via the SST process to develop culturally responsive approaches to her student behavior. In addition, she supports students directly through small group sessions and one-on-one meetings focused on social emotional learning. We've seen growth in our student connectedness data since we've had our MECO coordinator staff, with 97% of students reporting a strong connection to Birch Meadow last year. She also has made an impact in our attendance team, helping us move from 10% chronic absenteeism to 5% last year.
MECO SAC has formed solid relationships with Boston resident students, has been maintained an excellent balance of holding students accountable to high standards while also being flexible and available.
So I just want to make sure that the community, whoever's watching here and in person, just understands just the day-to-day impact that our MECO SACs and coordinators are having on our students and on our staff. Those were a lot of the way that I also say, if you take some time to talk to some of our staff too, it's not lost on us that they have chosen to lead in a predominantly white community. A lot of the different dynamics they all have to navigate in their leadership roles, we know can be really challenging and really taxing. And just the reason they're in it is for our kids, for all of our kids. Just thank you for showing up today. So that's gonna bring us to the next button. I'm gonna share a little bit about what the future is. I haven't broken down into 3 headlines. One, we are thrilled to share, we'll do these one at a time, that Jericho Santiago and Cindy Marte will be the full-time co-MECO directors. We'll add an additional MECO school counselor at the middle school level, so all of our K-8 schools will have a full-time MECO school counselor. And we are also thrilled to share Michael is here with us with the current Parker MECO coordinator. Given that will now be available to support all district schools with a schedule based on school and staff needs. Now that Parker will have a full-time SAC, Michael will now be available to all of our schools as well. I'm going to share a brief context on each of these. First on Cindy and Jerica. Thank you. Thank you this year for stepping up in a pinch, and thank you for also wanting to continue to answer the call to leadership. You have done an incredible job in our community, build relationships, you problem solve really well, you listen, you have a great vision for where the program should go. You stepped in seamlessly and continue to move this program forward. So a huge thank you to both. They will remain in their role. So Jerica will be full-time at Coolidge, and Cindy will still be at Birch, and both receive a stipend for their work in addition to their day-to-day work. I feel very, very confident in both as the directors of the program. The second, though, one reservation many of us had about this model was the fact that, especially for Jerica, she would be split across 2 schools, 2 larger schools, wearing multiple hats and then taking on the director role. We just thought that that would limit her ability to impact students the way that we all know we want the role to. Therefore, this additional MECO SAC will now allow Jerica to be focused on Coolidge and also the director role, which she feels confident she'll be able to do well, and hire a full-time SAC at Parker, which we know that those roles, and given the impact, now having them in all of our K-8 schools is the model we eventually wanted to get to. Michael, if you haven't had the chance to meet him, he has done an incredible job at Parker, jumping in, building relationships, rapport, connections to students, where you saw Trey speak as on him day in, day out. that's common for Boston and Reading resident students to hear about the impact that Mike Kell has had on them. Mike Kell just graduated with last year, did not have a formal counseling background, but this year, as already said, now he wants to go back, get his counseling degree, and wants to we think that having Mike Kell's impact in all of our schools will just be a value add to all of our schools. And Sonia was saying today, just already he's been over at Killam, already supporting students, and I think that it's just again a huge lift for our community. So we feel excited about what we think is an addition to our program for next year, and appreciate all of our everyone involved for your commitment to our community. Any one of our Metco SAC team want to share anything today that we didn't share in the presentation? Great. All right. I think, Tom, that brings us to Metco CEO search. So let's jump right to that. It's a pretty brief update to a couple of things on the Metco CEO search process. I'll start by sharing first one, thank you to Millie for her service. Millie was the CEO of Metco since 2018, and then this March announced that she'll be stepping down from her position. I have a little bit of behind the scenes curtain. I am the superintendent representative on the screening committee, so one of 7 members of the screening committee. We've met a couple of times to give you a little bit of context on where we've been, where we're going. First meeting was a month ago, talking about just here's what to expect, get to know each other. Meeting 2 weeks ago was to look at all the feedback they've gathered from internal staff, from external stakeholder groups, families, some students, some community partners about what leadership characteristics are needed in the next Metco CEO and president. We then compiled all of that to put together a job profile of the right candidate and also put that into a job description. We posted the job description last Friday, so May 9th, and now applications are starting to come in. Start interviewing candidates in the beginning of June, all the way through July, and that screening committee of 7 will then also be making a recommendation to the Metco board of either 2 or 3, and then to be able to make a final decision by late July, early August on the preferred candidate, with the hope that that candidate will then start on the beginning of September. Any just questions or process?
Just a statement real quick. I've appreciated Millie's engagement, her leadership as well. And those of you who don't know, she joined us for the Right to Read film viewing panel back in October as well. In that process, she jumped in without necessarily knowing, but adding her own context, which I thought was really important for that conversation. And then she became an advocate, and she was connecting various different committees, communities together. She's like, "You got me already. I'm hook, line, and sinker in." So, her involvement in even that level, I very much appreciate in the way that she connected things and made things possible for multiple meetings.
Thank you, Millie. And this second piece I want to share with the community is one of my biggest disappointments with Millie's departure was a worry that I thought Metco had strong momentum around the Metco 2.0 vision, which they spent a lot of time for various stakeholder groups and mapping out what Metco should look like in all of our communities. The good news is that work's going to continue, and I think the work's in a really good position. And I want to tie that to what we talked about earlier. Metco 2.0 maps out what we think, we being parents, students, community members, think a high quality Metco program should look like. That vision is distilled down into 13 commitments to say, if you're going to be a Metco community, you are going to commit to these 13 practices and commitments. What I like even more about this is that in each of those commitments, there's a spectrum of practice, which saying that this type of, if you're looking at, say, the commitment around academic outcomes, practice 1.0 looks like this. Obviously not where you want to be. Practice 1.5 would be you're making some progress and moving from 1 to 2. Metco 2.0 would look like this if it's implemented fully. I think that helps move us away from the conversation of, I think we're great. I think we stink at this. I think this, to actually say, well, what does it actually look like for our practice to be effective in certain areas that all Metco stakeholders are said are important about a high quality program. So as the summer moves on, I'll start sharing that document and what some of those commitments look like in practice. Our team as a Metco district has to choose a few of those focus areas for us and say, we currently rate ourselves here, and now we want to move our practice to here by the end of the year. So all of those conversations earlier around program improvement I think they can be a lot more tangible now that we have something in front of us that is standard across all METCO communities. So thank you to everyone who had a voice in METCO 2.0. We look forward to sharing more about that as we move forward. Any questions, concerns, CEO process?
Nope.
Great.
You've already jumped the shark on D1, so we can move on to D2, which is the school choice update in a second.
School choice. So for those who are maybe not familiar with school choice is a process where we, as the school committee, decide each year to opt out, if they so choose, of a process that allows families to enter into a lottery to enter into the Reading Public Schools with the seats that we say are available. Starting in FY23, so a couple of years ago, the school committee for the first time decided not to opt out of school choice, and we enrolled a small population of students from neighboring districts. We think that this is and has continued every year to increase the amount of seats available. I think this does a couple of things. One, it's a revenue generator for our district. It's $5,000 per student, which is additional revenue we can invest in our community. Two, it continues to add in students from all different, communities, backgrounds, interests, perspective, which again, I think more diverse communities are better communities. And we've seen that our school choice lotteries have increased the diversity of our communities. And then also third, it allows us to have our staff members' children join in the Reading Public Schools if they want the lottery, which a lot of our staff members now have their students in through school choice, which is a way to be able to recruit and retain staff as well. So you'll see in the packet, if you're following along, we just did a lottery. We had 27 students entering in for the start of next year. We listed out all the available spaces. And tonight we said we wanted to ask the school committee to say that we'd like to move forward with a couple extra seats for kindergarten. Kindergarten, we opened up 10 seats and we had 21 students apply. We are currently at 307 students for the enrollment. We think we can comfortably get to 330 without having to add any additional staff. So therefore, tonight we listed that we wanted to add 6 seats. I'm actually going to scale that back a little bit and say 4, given just what some of it we're seeing with enrollment. And we think if we do that, we can still comfortably ensure that our class sizes are in appropriate space. So open up to questions or comments.
So the table at the back of the packet, you want to make it 4, and
Four.
the rest of the stuff
Rest
is going to be the
stays the
same
same.
as well.
Correct.
4, 0, 3, 1, 2.
Correct.
This is in addition to the 27 that we've already received.
Correct.
So just a further context in terms of that, this was also a very big topic of conversation at town meeting. As Dr. Belchesky mentioned, it's a revenue producer for the district. In a year or a couple of years that we're facing some potentially pretty large financial challenges coming to Reading. So the more we can fund some of these things through other means, inclusive of, as Dr. Belchesky mentioned, added diversity as a result of it, the better off we'll be. And if you look at it, it doesn't really move the needle in terms of classroom size across the board in aggregate, which is a big thing. School committee, not policy technically, but guidelines are 18 to 22 for K through 2, and 22 to 25 for 3 through 5, with no guidelines after that really for 6 through 12. We don't really have anything over 30 in any class sizes above those numbers. So that's just the background in case anybody didn't have that background. I'm supportive of this personally, for multiple reasons, which I've already outlined, but if anybody else in the committee wants to add any feedback.
I'll just say that in the newspaper, every other day is an article about a community that didn't pass an override and the cuts that are being made in the school system. So kudos to this administration for just, these little things is what makes school districts. And it's just, it's awesome to watch.
Aaron, your hands in the air. We stop the share. It's either
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding the numbers. So based on the chart, you accepted 6 kindergartners. Is that accurate? And you want to accept 10?
No, so this chart is how many seats are available left over from the first lottery.
Oh, okay.
For kindergarten, we had listed 6 as our original intent was to open up 6 seats. In the past 48 hours, I decided to think we should probably scale that back a little bit. And there's not really a huge downside to scaling back because we can then keep a wait list and then we can let students into space that it allows to.
So so you want to let in 4 instead of 6?
Correct.
Okay, and how many have you already accepted for kindergarten?
10.
So it would be 14 in kindergarten.
Correct.
Okay, and that would hold, that wouldn't put anybody over 22, and it wouldn't impact the need to trigger hiring the teacher.
Correct. So I will go through just really quick to say if we do 22 as a class size, which I think is a little higher than what we would want. So I'll do, but we did 21 is a number. We
Great.
2 seats left at Barrows, 3 seats at Birch, 5 seats at JE, 16 at Killam, and 2 at Wood End. So you can guess where we probably have our 4 school choice students go as well, but it does those class sizes. So I'd say a little bit behind the strategy. That's a little too big for 3 classes, right? 60, because that's 22, 23s. That's a little 23, 23. Yeah.
4 classes there, right? So
Yeah, so 4, so we have to
maybe
make
88, so you're down to 72, basically, you have between 72 and 88.
Correct. Yep.
But 72 in 4 classes is relative.
Correct, and we're at 68 over 4. So we have some space there.
72 in 3 classes, yeah, that's not tenable, it's 24 per class, right? So that's over.
That's over.
Non-starter, yeah.
Starters.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I'm sorry, I needed to wrap my head around what you were saying and what was in the chart, but yeah, I would support that.
So we don't usually have a motion here, but we'll just do it, formalize it. I'll move to approve the chart as written in the packet with the amendment to 4 per kindergarten. Seconded by Carla. Any further discussion? All right, let's do a quick roll call vote. Erin?
Yes.
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Yes, 4-0. You're hereby approved, so.
Great.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else in closing?
I just also, one group we didn't get to thank tonight was a thank you to our staff. We said thank you to school committee parents. I think the partnership from the parents at all levels, I know the coordinators and counselors speak about it daily, but also I get to meet every, 3 weeks maybe with Ilka. Check in. Not bad.
I think it's excellent. We are super grateful for excellent time, leadership, support. Could not be more grateful. That's going to definitely be on the record now.
But thank you to our families for continued partnership and at every level of our district.
Yeah. I'll just go back real quick. There was a question on Zoom that we didn't get to answer, which is, can the school committee fund a consultant? And that's from a looking at perspective. I think the question we have to just discuss is what is that consultant? What would they want to do? What would the focus item be? Anything can be funded. We just have to figure out what the source would be, what the focus and goal would be. I'm assuming that's regarding in particular to staffing and, making sure we can hire the right things. But if that was the question, I think I want to say Shaquana, that might have been your question, but I apologize if I didn't get it right. So the answer to that is yes, with a yes, but for what, right? Let's clearly define the what for. Let's clearly define the duration. Let's clearly define how they're going to achieve that goal. So it's not just an open-ended consultancy. Okay. Okay. Anything else from anybody else in the committee? In the room? All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Carla. Eric was like, second.
Yeah.
Roll call. Erin.
Yes.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes.
Tom, yes, and we are adjourned.
You Thanks. I'm on the day. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
No, it gets the whole room. All right. I got it.
We're gonna hang up now.